everyone. Today I am so excited to be talking to author Jen Waite, and her newest debut book is called A Beautiful, Terrible Thing, a memoir of marriage and betrayal. And she has the copy of it because I was on my phone with it. There it is. Oh, I love it. I am so happy that you did the audio. I was, flipping from Kindle to audio because they have that whisper sync, like you can go back and forth. And Jen, I was crying. Okay, I mean, because I can hear the emotion.
I was too, so that makes me feel better.
Well, you know what though? I mean, I think it makes sense that for you to do it with this kind of book because you can hear the emotion and the, it takes you there. And I'll be sitting in my car in the parking lot of, the grocery store, and I'm like.
Yeah, I actually, as this is my first memoir, I didn't know how the audiobook works, and I just completely assumed because it's a memoir that I would do the audio. I just assumed that was the way that it worked. And I remember asking my editor and my literary agent about it, and they were like, oh, no, you have to audition. There's, the audiobooks, it's a big thing, and like audiobook artists, they have followings, and it's a really big deal to get to get a well-known audiobook artist. And I thought that was so bizarre. And then it actually did turn out that the publisher requested me to do it. But at first they were like, no, everyone has to audition. And I just thought that was so funny because it's such a personal, it's so like such an intensely personal memoir that I was just like, I feel like it makes sense for me to do it, but okay. But so I'm glad that they asked me to do it in the end. Even though it was definitely, like you said, and we just kind of talked about, it was very, very emotional, and I wasn't necessarily expecting the parts that like got to me. I wasn't expecting those particular parts to really to bring up those emotions.
Well, and our stories are so alike, and the thing that is it was really triggering me. I have gone through 2 marriages, but my first marriage, I was young, and until I read your book, and I don't know if you're getting this kind of feedback, but he cheated on me, okay, lots, but I never thought of it as a personality disorder until I read your book, and he started to fit. And I'm telling you, I'm 53, okay? My oldest son is 30, right? Like, we're talking years. I've been divorced from him since 90-something. I don't even remember. It was that traumatic. Yeah. But, I never thought of it the way, and the way you described it, I would have to catch my breath. I was like, oh, okay, all right, oh, okay. So, some of the things that I thought I did wrong, I bought into. Like, I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe after all these years, I can sit there and go, you really believe that, do you? Are you getting that feedback from people that have read your book?
I get so many messages, and these are really the best messages that I receive. Even though I don't want anyone to have gone through a similar experience, but the messages that I get that are similar to what you just said, where women are writing me and saying to me, today is the first day in like a year or 10 years or 20 years that I felt at peace because it's finally clicking into place, and I'm finally understanding what happened, and that I can stop blaming myself and start forgiving myself. And I have received, so many messages like that. And, it's not to say that every single cheater or liar is necessarily a psychopath, but I think that, there are people out there, and I think it's difficult and hard for, other people to recognize or understand that a lot of people have these personality traits that are somewhere on the spectrum. So they might not be, full-blown psychopaths, but there are quite a few people, especially in the United States, I think, or, where we are just so becoming more and more and more, like selfie obsessed and social media obsessed, and just kind of these traits on the spectrum are, being celebrated kind of, in our society now. So it is just absolutely crazy to me how many people are reaching out and saying, I've dated a narcissist, or I think I've dated a sociopath, and I didn't know until I read your book, and then it all clicked into place, and it made me feel like, okay, I can finally let this go. So to hear that is like amazing.
Right, that you put that work into it, which I'm assuming was not easy, okay? And I have to tell you, like, the drama that the before and after, I was on this, I'm like, what did he do? What did he do? Like, I just couldn't read it fast enough because I love that concept instead of just taking a story right through, because there is a before and after, and I never thought about it like that. But okay, in the 80s, my son was born in 87. There was no term narcissist, okay?
Right.
There was, I'm sure, in the therapy, business.
But it wasn't like a popular term that people would use. Yeah.
No, it was
that's very true.
like this shameful, my husband is cheating on me, okay? And I'll never forget the moment I was 8 months pregnant, and he was in the military. We were in the military. We were living on base. And he said he had to go away. And he always had to go away. Okay? They always had to go away. Well, I went to like an event, and they were like, the guys in his squadron were there. And I'm like, I thought you had to go away. They're like, no. I'm like, Brian went away. They're like, okay. And I was like, where'd he go? Like,
yeah.
And I remember this woman sat me down and like looked at me, and she was like, your husband is having an affair. I'm like, what? I'm having a baby.
I know, and it's so, when you're in the situation, you really, I had no idea.
Right, and
I
it's
had
like, how does it blow
no
us
idea.
away like that?
And I think that's also something that's really hard for people to believe, and maybe they don't want to believe it because it is really scary. And like I go into detail about the red flags that I missed or, chose not to see at the beginning of the relationship. So that's a whole nother thing. But when you're in it, when you're really in a relationship with like a narcissist or a psychopath, you are placed on this pedestal and idealized, and you have no idea. And then there's all kinds of other tactics, like manipulative tactics that they're using as well. So when, it's like your world is just completely shattered. And it's just absolute, to me, it was like just such a shock, just absolute shock and confusion.
Right. I don't know that there probably aren't that many women that, especially when you're young, you do think that way. And I was young. I was 21, 22, I guess, at the time. And I had 3 children with him because he had an answer for everything. Everything. When I tell you he had an answer, as I'm reading your thing, I'm like, oh my God, he had that answer. Oh my God, he used it.
I know. That's another really interesting part of it, is that I get a lot of messages where people, mostly women, but there are some men too, but it's like the down to the exact same words that they use are the same as what my ex-husband said, and I just find that so interesting and really eerie. And it is, like, in the book I say it's almost like he has a handbook.
That's when you said that, I was like, yes, where's like that handbook? We're talking, this is the 80s. Like, this isn't, like, it's like a long time ago.
Right. That's why I find it so fascinating, and that is why, it's a personality disorder. That there are certain traits that these people have when they're on the spectrum, and there are certain tactics that work and certain words that work, and I think that it's just something that they develop over time, and so a lot of the responses are almost exactly the same, down to exactly what words they use, and it's just it's like I look at it now from more like a clinical viewpoint, and it's like so fascinating to me. But yeah, it's
so frightening. It really is. It really hit me. I just can't even tell you like what an impact. But I just remember one of my red flags was, so before we got married, we were high school sweethearts, okay? Mm-hmm. And then he went in the military, and I was waiting around. We got engaged, and I waited for him to get to a place where we could get married, and settle down. And one time I called his room, and it was like a month before our marriage, and the guy's like, oh, hey, Lisa, he's not here. And I was like, my name's Michelle. And he's like, oh, Michelle. I laugh now because, like, when I found, when I got a hold of him, I was like, who's Lisa? He's like, what? I'm like, that guy just called me Lisa. He's like, I don't even know that guy. I'm like, oh.
I think that, like, also it's important to clarify that, maybe a lot of people who haven't had this relationship just think, oh, like, a lot of people, unfortunately, do cheat or lie, and they're just, like, flawed individuals. But I think there's obviously a few differences, like, big differences. But one of them is that, like we were just talking about, when you're with like a narcissist or sociopath, it really seems like nothing is wrong, and like you're on top of the world. And it's not like, I mean, that's why I think a lot of people's response is, how did you not see it coming? It's not like this slow degradation of a relationship. It's like they're this completely charming, amazing person, and then bam. And then I don't know what your experience was like, but obviously what mine was like. The other big difference is that when you do confront the person, there's absolutely no remorse, and you're never going to get any remorse ever. And so that was something that I just had never experienced before, and that was really what led me to the research of, like, what am I dealing with? Because I had never experienced thinking that someone was, my best friend, and I knew him like the back of my hand, and then absolutely just overnight a totally different person.
Yeah, I know. Well, like I said, I had 3 children with him. Okay, like that's how good he was.
Right.
And he was good. Okay, like looking back, but my daughter, who's now 26, she's the youngest of the 3, right? He abandoned them, way young. Okay, and last year she got married, and she invited him, but I walked her down the aisle, and he had a fit beyond fit. He was like, "How dare you walk my daughter?" I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
everything is
it was just
kind
really
of like
funny
a
because
game.
They still think they can do that. Like, have that, like, how dare you? And I was just like, how dare you be here? Okay. Like, you can go now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Where were you? But I am very, very fortunate in a lot of ways, because my ex-psychopath has completely kind of gone off the radar. It was almost like as soon as he realized that I knew what he was, and my family, and like this whole orbit of people kind of understood that he was not the person that they thought he was, he just didn't want anything to do with us. And so he's gone completely off the radar, which again, I kind of feel really fortunate about, because I also receive a lot of messages from women who are like co-parenting with men with, either narcissistic personality disorder or, somewhere on the spectrum of like psychopathy, and it sounds really horrible.
Yeah, well, he wasn't in their childhood, but when they turned 18, each one of them, he called and like wanted to be friends with, and then kind of put me down. Like, well, she didn't let me see you, and, they knew better, but, so my daughter was like, well, I'm going to invite him, but he has nothing to do with anything. Like, he can come, but,
right.
She is not even speaking to him right now. I mean, it's like, it's always off and on with him, because if you don't make him happy, he's not going to pay attention to you anyway, so it doesn't really matter,
Right.
They have to find that out for themselves, unfortunately, but, yeah, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. I've always wanted them to make peace with him in some way, but now after reading your book, I'm just like, oh, good. Like, I don't feel bad now for it not succeeding. Like, it's on him now. They're adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a struggle for me too, and the only thing you can really do is kind of give your children the tools and the truth. Obviously in a kind of age-appropriate way, but that's kind of something that I've thought a lot about. Obviously, my daughter is like really young, so I might not have to have this conversation for a little bit, but I've always, from the beginning, or a few months after the beginning, decided that, you know, I would just let her decide for herself, but give her the understanding and the truth of kind of what his limitations are.
That's what I try to do.
That he's completely out of the picture, so probably it would be her decision to reach out.
There.
But it's really hard because you know, our society is like, there is this stigma of no matter what happens between the parents, both parents should try to co-parent and try to make it work. And like, I would say that 98% of the time I do completely agree with that, but there are cases where the parent who is, you know, not on the spectrum needs to make a decision that the other parent is a really you're not dealing with like a normal, you know, the marriage didn't work or whatever. We're like adults who are flawed and, you know, it just didn't work out. It's like you're dealing with like a very toxic person. So yeah, it's definitely something that I think about quite a bit in my own life.
Well, if he happens to resurface, you know, like in my situation when he resurfaced, and, you know, I don't know. I don't care as much. Like I said, they're older. But it was interesting because my son does these videos, right? So I kind of prepped him on it. Because there were a lot of things I did not tell him. And he's 30. Okay? And I was just like, look, you know, these are some things that happen. Like, I didn't try to cast him in a perfect light, but I also tried to censor what I said.
Right.
But now that he has kids and he's married, I feel like, you know what? I can tell him. He knows what marriages are like. You know, like there are things I can say now to the married people. But it's just...
Exactly.
It's a thing.
An intelligent adult with his own family, like you said. I'm sure that there are some things that probably don't even surprise him, or that maybe, you know, he might know more than you think, you know?
Yeah, I would think so. But I wanted to ask you, like, while I was reading this, and I mean, this is so well written. I mean, Jen, I love this book. It is so well written. But when you were doing your research, and of course you're in school for this now, is there something like about us that we can be lied to like, because I think of people, you know, I thought I was loving him. Like, people would be like, why are you putting up with that? Well, because I love him. Like, you know, it's like, it's insane to say, but, you know, it was true. It was true. I wanted to hear I heard what I wanted to hear. He said it. I heard it. Even though there were days I thought I was going insane. And then I would be like, wait a second. Okay. Do normal people accept it? Wait, am I normal? Am I, you know, do I put my foot down? When do I put my foot down? When do I say something? When do I, you know? So it's like, do they know that it's us? I don't know. Like, what is that relationship? Because I've heard different theories on it, you know, as to what that narcissist abuse relationship looks like.
I mean, I think, first of all, I just want to clarify that I haven't started my master's program yet. I was applying and then kind of took like a break from applying. So I'm not actually in school yet. However, yes, I have done a lot of research on this topic and written a book about it. And also, I mean, along these lines, like the last part of the book kind of starts to deal with this, but even in the past year after I've stopped writing, I've been dealing with it even more, just kind of that part of like looking inward and not necessarily, you know, saying, oh, I'm to blame because of this, this, and this, because I don't think that, you know, the victim is it's not about blame, but kind of looking inward and kind of figuring out for me personally, like, what are my vulnerabilities and insecurities that led me to, you know, not be like taken for a ride, but drawn to this type of personality, or how, you know, what about me did he look at me and kind of figure out that he could exploit. And I think it's different for everyone, but first of all, I think that narcissists are just very drawn to empathetic people, which isn't at all a bad thing, you know, but we are very empathetic, like feeling sensitive people. They're very drawn to that, and kind of use that like against you, use your most kind of sensitivity against you, your humanity against you, because we just tend to see the best. Like I am definitely more cynical now, but when I met him in my 20s, I really was very naive, but also like optimistic, happy-go-lucky, seeing the best in everyone. I will also say that I didn't even know what boundaries were. Like I'm still kind of figuring that out every day as I go along. But that's also something that I never thought about, really never like put in place. And I didn't really have any boundaries. Like just as far as when now I know if I ever was in a relationship where someone lied, or like a big lie, or like something that I have these very concrete boundaries that I now have in place that I never ever had before. So I think that was really the most, like, that was actually the scariest part of this whole process, was the very end, and kind of what I'm still doing every day, this kind of inner work to try to like protect, like build up these tools and protections against these types of people. Because I actually think once you know what to look for, and also once you develop these boundaries, now it's so like seems so clear to me that I like, or it seems so ridiculous in a way that I went into that relationship, because it was like, it was such a like whirlwind, intense, crazy romance that in my 20s at the time I thought, oh, this is amazing, love, whatever. But now I like look back on it and I'm just like, oh my God, red flag, red flag, red flag. And it's kind of like, you could say cynical in a way, because, or sad in a way, because I do feel that I probably wouldn't like just go head over heels ever again. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that that's something that I didn't understand as not a kid. I was like 24 when I met him, but kind of felt like a kid, and just didn't really understand that you kind of, it's great to have chemistry and romance, but at the end of the day, like, you really want like a decent, genuine, kind person. And I didn't put those traits first at all. I put like the romance, the intensity, the, roller coaster of emotions. I thought that that was the most important part of a relationship. And as you know as well, those things can be great and they can also backfire tremendously, especially when you have children with someone. Yes. So I think for me, it was just a lot of kind of looking inward and figuring out why I needed validation from someone else, which like everyone does to a certain extent. Right. But it's really scary to do that and to admit that, and to kind of like put your like worst, messiest self out there and kind of pull it all apart and like start over.
Yeah, and I did get remarried, and then I had 3 more children, and but that marriage was the exact opposite, where we weren't head over heels in love. We got married because we were really good friends, and I was like, oh, this is how it's going to work. But then I have to tell you, at the end of that marriage, it was like, there is a balance, okay? There is the love and then the friendship, okay?
Yeah. So I was going to say, I think a lot of women go to the opposite extreme.
Because you think you're going to know better. You're like, I'm smart now. I'm in my 30s. I'm not in my stupid 20s. I'm in my smart 30s.
Right. And you don't want to ever experience that kind of pain again. Right. So I think it's natural to think, oh, this feels really safe. But yes, I had a relationship as well like that somewhat recent, probably a few months ago now. And yeah, you like gravitate towards it because it feels so safe. But at the end of the day, like, you need to be a little bit more than friends.
Right. And I learned that, of course, we raised a lot of children together. We were successful in some things, but, at the end, when they were all growing up, it's like, what do you have left? We didn't have anything left. And it was like, oh, well, we really didn't love each other, in that way.
Right.
So when the kids are gone, like, what are you doing? Like, we performed well, I should say, raising kids. But when that isn't there anymore, then what do you have? So it's got to be both. But I'm glad to hear you say that women go, because it is interesting, because you do you're like, okay, I had love. I had that intense thing that just, I just got hurt by that. So he can't hurt me like he could. So it's like,
right. No, exactly. It's like, there's no answer, and I don't have the answer yet. And I think that, honestly, looking around at my friends and family and relationships, like, I don't even know that I know that many people in truly healthy and also loving and also, chemistry, like, all those things going on. I think it's extremely rare to find that. I think that's one of the most difficult things that you can try to find as a human being in your life, but yet it's touted as like that a woman in particular is not, like, whole until she finds that partner, and it's very rushed, and it's very like, oh, you have to, at least I think it's changing now, but my parents were very, very young when they got together, and I just always assumed that I would find, like, my person in my 20s, and that's so young.
I know, now looking at it, aren't you like, that's so young, and my 3 children got married in their 20s, and I'm like, okay, guys,
Yeah, it can totally work, but
it can totally work, but can I tell you how much I love your parents from this book? Oh, I'm like, I had my mom around. My dad had died somewhere in the middle of it, and so I didn't have him. So I was like, I found myself, like, every time your dad spoke, I was like, at least she has a dad who's like, Jen.
I know, he's the only voice of reason. Like, looking back on it now, he was really the only one out of my friends and family who really knew, I think, right away what was going on, because as a man, like, he just knew right away that was complete.
Right, like, you're like, no, it's just an emotional relationship. He's like,
right, an emotional affair. And so many men have emotional affairs.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, okay, Jen, no.
Right, no, I'm extremely, extremely fortunate to have my parents and, like, the support system that I do have, and I think about that now. Like, when I was really in it, I wasn't thinking about it that much, but now I do think about a lot of women go through, like, my story is not unique in any way. It's just that I happen to, like, write a memoir, and I think that the format of the memoir really helped to make it really compelling. But this kind of thing happens all the time, and I mean, so many women don't have support systems, and so it's just, that's something that I think about, and I'm just so incredibly grateful that I was able to, like, lean on my family and my parents in particular, that I had, like, a place to go, because women who don't have a place to go, I think that's when they end up staying, and that's when you end up being in a toxic relationship for years and years and years and years.
Right, like I was. I mean, this is back in the day when I was calling my mom, but it was costing me money. Like, I was away, so it was costing me money to talk to her, so it was very difficult. But I want to ask you before we have to go, is what are you working on? Like, are you going to write another one of these? Because really, I mean, I know, like, it's like, well, I wrote this memoir, and you did such a good job. Like, I want to see you write something else. Like, I'm really hoping you are.
Thank you. I actually have been I took a bit of a break the past few months, and now I am starting to think about writing again. And I think I probably wouldn't write nonfiction. I don't know that I have that much more to say.
Well, you're young, there's maybe there'll be more later, but it doesn't have to be nonfiction. I mean, just your writing skills are really, like I said, I would be like flipping through my Kindle, like in the grocery store, and I'd just stop and, like, finish a chapter, or I'd be in my car, and I would just, you had me going. It wasn't just that I related to the story, but it was how you develop the story. And, you know, it could have just been a right from start to finish, and then you'd be like, okay, well, that was awesome. But no, this was like a page turner, like, experience.
Right.
You know?
And that's what I'm kind of leaning towards, or like, I feel that if I write another book, it will be like a psychological thriller, but a novel. And so that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately. And just kind of putting some, you know, pieces of the story together and thinking about characters and stuff, but I haven't actually started yet. It's still very much in my head, but I would really love to get something else down on paper.
Good. I'm really happy about that. Let us see your cover again, because I'm going to show everybody. I want to show everybody. And I have all of Jen's links listed under here so you can find it. I've read all your Amazon comments. You're getting so much good things being said about this. I mean, I found it on Facebook. Somebody recommended it to me, and I, you know, just went and bought it and read, and I was like, whoa, this is such a good book. So, you know.
That's so great to hear.
The word is out there.
I mean, social media is so powerful. I mean, it's in the memoir a lot too, but it's still like crazy to me how social media can launch, you know, like a book or an artist, or it's really, really awesome to hear that it's spreading through word of mouth, which I think is important.
Really is, and I'm so happy that you wrote it. It really meant a lot to me, so thank you so much. And I hope to hear more from you. Please let me know, you know, whatever you got going. I want to hear about it. So,
all right, I'll keep you updated.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a great night, Jen.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.